anything with a touch of the finger. Strange men, these creatures of the 100th century, men with huge brains and tiny shriveled bodies, atrophied limbs and slow, ponderous movements on their little conveyances. It was I, with my ancient compunctions, who shuddered when at last they put to death all the perverts, the criminals, and the insane, ridding the world of the scum for which they had no more need. It was then that I was forced to produce my tattered old papers proving my identity and my story. They knew it was true in some strange fashion of theirs, and thereafter I was kept on exhibition as an archaic survival. I saw the world made immortal through the new invention of a man called Cathol, who used somewhat the same method legend decreed had been used upon me. I observed the end of speech, of all perceptions except one, when men learned to communicate directly by thought, and to receive directly into the brain all the myriad vibrations of the universe. All these things I saw, and more, until that time when there was no more discovery, but a perfect world in which there was no need for anything but memory. Men ceased to count time at last. Several hundred years after the 154th dynasty from the last war, or as we would have counted in my time, about 200,000 AD, official records of time were no longer kept carefully. They fell into disuse. Men began to forget years, to forget time at all. Of what significance was time when one was immortal? After long, uncounted centuries, a time came when the days grew noticeably colder. Slowly, the winters became longer, and the summers diminished to but a month or two. Fierce storms raged endlessly in winter, and in summer sometimes there was severe frost. Sometimes there was only frost. In the high places, and in the north, and in the sub-equatorial south, the snow came and would not go. Men died by the thousands in the higher latitudes. New York became, after a while, the furthest habitable city north, an Arctic city where warmth seldom penetrated. And great fields of ice began to make their way southward, grinding before them the brittle remains of civilizations, covering over relentlessly all of man's proud work. Snow appeared in Florida and Italy one summer. In the end, snow was there always. Men left New York, Chicago, Paris, Yokohama, and everywhere they travelled by the millions southward, perishing as they went, pursued by the snow and the cold, and that inevitable field of ice. They were feeble creatures when the cold first came upon them, but I speak in terms of thousands of years, and they turned every weapon of science to the recovery of their physical power, for they foresaw that the only chance for survival lay in a hard, strong body. As for me, at last I had found a use for my few powers, for my physique was the finest in that world. It was but little comfort, however, for we were all united in our awful fear of that cold and that grinding field of ice. All the great cities were deserted. We would catch silent, fearful glimpses of them as we sped on in our mechanics over the snow. Great, hungry, haggard skeletons of cities, shrouded in banks of snow, snow that the wind rustled through desolate streets where the cream of human life had once passed in calm security. Yet still the ice pursued. For men had forgotten about that last ice age, when they ceased to reckon time, when they lost sight of the future and steeped themselves in memories. They had not remembered that a time must come when ice would lie white and smooth over all the earth, when the sun would shine bleakly between unending intervals of dim twilight, snow and sleet. Slowly the ice pursued us down the earth, until all the feeble remains of civilization were gathered in Egypt and India and South America. The deserts flowered again, but the frost would come always to bite the tiny crops. for still the ice came. All the world now, but for a narrow strip around the equator, was one great, silent, desolate vista of stark ice plains, ice that brooded above the hidden ruins of cities that had endured for hundreds of thousands of years. It was terrible to imagine the awful solitude and the endless twilight that lay on these places, and the grim snow, sailing in silence over all. It surrounded us on all sides, until life remained only in a few scattered clearings all about that equator of the globe, with an eternal fire going to hold away the hungry ice. Perpetual winter reigned now, and we were becoming terror-stricken beasts that preyed on each other for a life already doomed. Ah, but I, the archaic survival, I had my revenge then, with my great physique and strong jaws. God, let me think of something else. Those men who lived upon each other. It was horrible, and I was one. So, inevitably, the ice closed in. One day, the men of our tiny clearing were but a score. We huddled about our dying fire of bones and stray logs. We said nothing. We just sat in deep, wordless, thoughtless silence. We were the last outpost of mankind. I think suddenly something very noble must have transformed these creatures to a semblance of what they had been of old, and I saw in their eyes the question they sent from one another, and in every eye I saw the answer was yes. With one accord, they rose before my eyes, and, ignoring me as a baser creature, they stripped away their load of tattered rags, and one by one they stalked with their tiny shriveled limbs into the shivering gale of swirling, gusting snow, and disappeared. And I was alone. So am I alone now. I have written this last fantastic history of myself and of mankind upon a substance that will, I know, outlast even the snow and the ice, as it has outlasted mankind that made it. It's the only thing with which I have never parted, for it's not irony that I should be the historian of this race. I, a savage, an archaic survival. Why do I write? God knows, but some instinct prompts me, although there will be never men to read. I have been sitting here, waiting, and I have thought often of Sir John and Alice, whom I loved. Can it be that I'm feeling again, after all these ages, some tiny portion of that emotion, that great passion I once knew? I see her face before me, the face I've lost from my thoughts for eons, and something is in it that stirs my blood again. Her eyes are half closed and deep. Her lips are parted as though I could crush them with an infinity of wonder and discovery. Oh God, is it love again? Love that I thought was lost. They have often smiled upon me when I spoke of God, and muttered about my foolish, primitive superstitions, but they are gone, and I am left who believe in God, and surely there's purpose in it. I am cold, I've written. I am frozen. My breath freezes as it mingles with the air, and I can hardly move my numbed fingers. The ice is closing over me, and I cannot break it any longer. The storm cries weirdly all about me in the twilight, and I know this is the end of the world. And I, the last man, I'm cold, but is it you, Alice? Is it you? End of The Coming of the Ice by G.